here's Brody Brazil.
Before we get too deep into the Giants signing of free agent Jung Hoo Lee, there are two things that need to be established at the very beginning of this video. Number one, nobody right now can truly tell you how this is going to work out. In the short term or the long term, there's just too much unpredictability here. There's too many variables, too many elements at play. Somebody who's had quite a career already in the KBO, how will it translate to Major League Baseball? There's a lot of things that make this fascinating, that could potentially make this lucrative, that make this very compelling from a storyline perspective alone. But we just don't know yet. We're not there yet. So all the hot takes, for better and for worse, I don't know how any of that can truly stand as being accurate. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that everybody right here, right now, needs to cleanse their palate from Shohei Ohtani. I realize that happened a couple days ago now at this point. Everybody's still fresh on it. And it was interesting, by the way, to hear that the Giants had basically matched that offer of about $700 million and about 10 years, that they were right there. It's just that Ohtani chose Los Angeles. Okay. But everybody, Giants fans, Blue Jays fans, anybody else that thought they were in on the Ohtani running, you have to move on, you have to detach, right? Because you can't compare everything else you do from here on out to what if the Giants would have landed Ohtani. So separate yourself, detach yourself from that as we get to this. Jung Hoo Lee, a contract of 6 years for $113 million, including that $19 million posting fee to his KBO team. Essentially, you have to kind of pay them off for the opportunity to sign him as a free agent. The basics and the vitals go like this. He's 25 years old, 6 feet tall, 171 pounds, bats left. Oh man, he's got a sweet swing. I can't play the video here for you. I think there's copyright reasons, but his swing is a thing of beauty. Like all lefties, whether it's a basketball jump shot or a baseball swing, the lefty version of everything just looks smoother, but his especially so. Throws right. He's had 7 years in the KBO. Broke in at the very youngest of ages, so he's kind of a veteran playing baseball professionally in Korea. He initially was a shortstop. They converted him into a center fielder, and it has paid off. 5 straight Golden Gloves in the KBO. Now, last year was unfortunate for him. About halfway through the season, July 2023, he broke his ankle. It required season-ending surgery. So kind of an unceremonious end to his KBO days, but obviously he's got to be thrilled about this chance of breaking into Major League Baseball. And baseball bloodlines run deep for him. His dad played pro ball both in Japan and in Korea. I think he was a veteran of about 20 years, so it's always kind of reassuring, right? It doesn't even really matter the sport. If you are the descendant of somebody who was also a professional athlete, you kind of automatically have that going for you, like you were brought up the right way. You're into this. Jung Hoo Lee will get into his career and the stats, how they play out, and also last year, or I should say the last full year, 2022, when he was healthy. 884 games played across those 7 seasons. During that span, a .340 batting average, which, oh yeah, by the way, just happens to be the highest KBO career average in league history. Nobody's done it better, and his sample of 7 years, I mean, that's definitely not the smallest size we've ever seen. 407 on-base percentage, but check this out. Super impressive. Almost 4,000 plate appearances, 3947, and only 304 strikeouts. This dude strikes out once every, 13 or so at-bats. They've made the reference that he's kind of like a Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn had so many at-bats and plate appearances and barely any strikeouts over the years. So many more walks than strikeouts. And so you can kind of gauge the type of hitter that Jung Hoo Lee is here. 1,181 hits across 7 seasons. Only 244 doubles and only 43 triples and only 65 homers. Do the math. He's a contact hitter. He's a big-time singles hitter. And that gets you to the .340 career batting average, the highest KBO player batting average in league history. It's kind of hard to judge last season because it was only a half season. It ended so abruptly with the ankle injury, but 2022 was his last full season. He was the league's MVP. He hit 23 dingers in 142 games. Look, all of this plays so well in the KBO, and at 25 years old, just kind of entering into himself and his prime and what he's capable of. How does it translate into Major League Baseball? That's obviously a huge question and consideration, and I'll jump to the concerns right away. But I also want to tell you there's a separate section on just the eye test, what I've seen through YouTube videos, through just kind of getting a first impression of video alone. And I watched a fair amount. I'll have some thoughts on that in just a second. But yeah, what is it really like to jump from the KBO to Major League Baseball? The velocity of pitches, much higher. The quality of pitches, much greater. The fact that you're facing arm after arm after arm, not only in a baseball game between the starters and the bullpen and the closer for the opposition, but also day after day. You know, the fifth starter in Major League Baseball is like probably a league ace of the KBO. And it's not knocking the Korean baseball organization. It's just the level of competition and his stats are so inflated out there. That's fine. But what if, for example, you know, in the conversion rate of batting average, what if he's 60 points fewer? That's still a 280 hitter. I think you'll take that. The consistency, putting balls in play, his swing, like I said, I'll discuss in just a second. He's just got such a smooth, sweet approach. And for a guy that just puts the ball in play, widens the strike zone, doesn't have a lot of holes, we'll get into all that. Quality hitter, and you'd have to think that some of that carries over even if the pitching competition is that much more different and difficult. Will there just flat out be an adjustment period? Like through spring training in April and May and the first half of this season, can you basically write that off and say, well, we'll take what we take, but we cannot instantly expect him to come in and make an everyday impact? Like, you know, you want him to, but is that even realistic to ask somebody to, oh yeah, come overseas for the first time in your life and compete at the major league level? And yeah, they signed him to a pretty big deal. And I know $132 million of the total cost between the contract and the fee that's owed to the KBO, it's a pretty hefty commitment to a player with zero Major League Baseball experience. He also has an opt-out in this contract after year 4, meaning that if things go so well and he wants to cash in bigger and better, he can effectively end this contract after 4 years. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm just telling you, I likely see some adjustments, an adjustment period, but that's fine. I'll take it. Watching him play, understanding the stats and where he's coming from here, I think he'll succeed. I'm just saying it may not happen instantly. But also for Giants fans, what else is next? Right? And we've detached ourselves from the Ohtani conversation and that whole episode, but this signing alone can't be it for San Francisco. All right, you've got your center fielder, maybe you've got a leadoff hitter. How about pitching? How about depth at other spots? How about even a reinforcement for this position? There has to be more to this than just this. This move has to be the start of even more for San Francisco. And that's, not connected here to the player, but it's one of the situations that the team is facing. They can't make this their only move. The eye test is that he has such a sweet swing. And it starts with that wide open stance. The front foot is way up the first baseline. He kind of does a little toe tap to bring it closer. And in that toe tap, there's such a patience. Like it's a patient stance, if that makes sense. Some guys are just swinging so hard, like swinging for the fences with every at-bat and every swing. He's not that. It literally looks like he's throwing the barrel of the bat straight to the baseball. And don't get me wrong, I've seen the highlight reels. He can make loud contact. In fact, one time he hit a dinger, he knew it. And instead of doing the bat flip, he carried the bat for a while, then did a bat spike. I love that swag. And I think it was a playoff game of the KBO. But a guy who mostly is there to drive the ball, put it in the gaps from the left side, he's just got such a diligent swing. Such a technical and professional, but yet sweet and simple and smooth swing. Maybe with an on-base percentage like that and an average like that and a contact type hitter, maybe he's your leadoff guy. And maybe you work with him on discipline to draw even more walks, but even putting the ball in play, it could be a fit. And his size and probably his speed, that would kind of all go together in a leadoff type situation. When you watch him, you can clearly see that he sometimes will swing at pitches that are not strikes and make contact and put the ball in play and get a hit. He totally expands the strike zone. And so when pitchers are trying to miss on purpose, he can actually make them pay. It seems like his strike zone and his contact zone is like about 30% bigger than the actual strike zone, or more, maybe 40% bigger. In fact, somebody said there's highlights of him hitting a ball that bounced in front of home plate. He still made contact, put it in play, and got a hit. Okay, I'll have to find that. Not a lot of holes in his swing, according to those who watch him on a regular basis. He's not a guy that the breaking ball gets him every time, or there's not a pitch or an area of the strike zone that is a weak spot for him. Not a lot of holes in the swing, not a lot of holes in his zone coverage. And from all we know, you don't win 5 Golden Gloves in the KBO if you're not sure-handed. There's not as many highlights of those that I've tried to go seek out, but the bottom line is you've got to think that the defensive side for him, no matter what, is going to translate and come across a lot easier than it will with the bat, right? The bat and the at-bats, a one-on-one with the pitcher versus just playing a solid center field. That part should probably happen naturally from day one for Jung Hoo Lee. So 6 years, $113 million. Again, if you think you know how this is going to go, I challenge you and say, well, how do you know? How do you know how good or how marginal this is going to be? I think it's exciting because of the potential and the fact that you know what scouts saw because he was highly coveted. I saw him on a top 10 list of all the free agents this offseason, and the Giants have themselves somebody from the top 10. All right, that's the start. What's next? What are the complementary pieces? There are still some other ones out there. So if you really look back, right, and you miss out on Ohtani, okay, put together a player like Jung Hoo Lee, maybe 1 or 2 other favorables from that top 10 list or close to it, and I think you've had yourself a pretty good offseason. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.